of Montreal, I Feel Safe With You Trash album review. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. We're here tonight to chat about this new album from Of Montreal. They are an Athens, Georgia-based band. They have been kingpins for many years of the indie pop genre. I mean, at this point, what's even left to say about Kevin Barnes and company? They have recorded so many great albums over the years. Their early twee pop years are underappreciated. Their mid-2000s run is absolutely incredible. But let's be real, recently, it's been tough to be an Of Montreal fan. Ever since they started to turn things back around with what I thought was a pretty decent album, Lousy with Sylvie and Briar, it's been rough. Aureate, Gloom, Innocence Reaches, the You Are Fun album from last year, which was one of my least favorite albums of the year. It's been getting really rough. Lo and behold, here we are with a double album. I don't even know where to start, but let's do it. Kevin Barnes these days does not make it easy on me. Early on in the album, we get tracks like Aries Equals Good Trash, and let me just say this, we get a lot of very dreary, very spacey tracks, often back to back on this album, and hearing them in bulk is tough. I get the aesthetic that they're going for, but it's just not where I like to hear Of Montreal. And this track is just one of the worst tracks here. It sounds like it's pulling teeth to hear from the band. It's just not flattering to them. There's nothing catchy in sight. It's honestly just really depressing. There's also a lot of tracks on here that I just can't take seriously. Take, for example, Drowner's Tears. This atmosphere is revolting, and the vocal inflections have achieved a level of headache in me that I haven't heard since last year. The off-kilter pacing, the goofball sound effects. This is not my cup of tea. I actually had a lot of hope for the title track here. It has a very deep atmosphere, and some of the instrumentals are pretty off-kilter. And the synths here especially, they're so campy. I love that. But outside of that, I'm kind of running out of things to say already. Drawn out, it's bored sounding, and it's uninspired. And I do have to tip my hat to some of the moments here that do get a little wild. But truthfully, this track doesn't turn the album around. Equatorial Hemorrhage is a Dead Link is also not easy to take in. I do once again love the hazy instrumental and just how campy this track is. But I'm sorry, I'm just not into Kevin's performance here. He sounds like he's trying too hard. These lyrics, come on. Now, before you just X out of this video and just go on with your day, I will say this, a good chunk of this album actually has some of Kevin's best songwriting in a long time. While far from perfect, this album gets pretty decent at points. And we can survive anything if we fake it. I actually really like this track. The production here, and honestly, on most of this album, is spot on. And the off-kilter grooves of this track actually bring me back to a time where Of Montreal was pushing the envelope. I mean, it's not as catchy as, like, anything off of some of their classics, but I genuinely think this is a decent dose of oddball art pop. On the other hand, now that's what I call Freewave. Might be the best track that Kevin's wrote in 8 years or so. It's punchy, it's fun, it's colorful, and insanely memorable. Not only that, but it does that while sticking with a lot of the themes of this album. On the other hand, Japanese Word for Witch is one of the best examples of this slower, drearier sound from Of Montreal. It's much more emotional, it's very fascinating at times, actually. It just seems to me to be a lot more appropriate, if that makes sense. Like, Kevin Barnes to me sounds so much more invested in this track, and that's really all I can ask for. All the while, it's just as colorful and beautifully textured. It's not like there's no good ideas on this album. There's actually quite a bit. And True Beauty Forever goes hard, man. I love how colorful and big and full of life this is. And at first, you know what? I'll be honest, I wasn't into the songwriting here, and it's not a strong spot. But this track's energy and how much fun it is, especially that dance groove, wins it over for me. And Fuckheads is the autocorrection is an odd one for sure. I actually really love the sort of twisted reality that we get on this track. Sure, it's a little toned down, a little dreary once again, which hasn't been my favorite sound on this album. But I actually think Kevin's quirky performance here brings this world to life. This isn't going to be a track for everyone, but for me, a guy that hasn't enjoyed what Kevin Barnes and Of Montreal have been putting out for the last 5 years or so, this isn't bad. If I heard more tracks like Fingerless Gloves, honestly, I don't think I would hate this album at all. This is really wild of a track and very colorful once again. It makes me feel like anything can happen at any point, and that for me is always a selling point with an album. Even some of the spacier moments here don't come off bad, and that low-key funk is genuinely sexy. And for a legitimately experimental track here, Notes of Violate, Spectates, A Flatter of Mail may be the most weird tune here. And from a distance, I thought that was going to mean this was going to be a disaster. But no, it's actually pretty vibrant. I love how hazy and out of control this is. I don't know, for me, this is just the genuine dose of weird I needed right now. I want to like this album. I want to tell you to go out and listen to the latest of Montreal album because it's really fresh and interesting for the group. But sadly, for every good track here, there's also one that's very awkward. Part and Aesthetics as an intro, I mean, I like parts of it. I do think that dreamy and dreary production, once again, works. But I don't know, man, the plotting along everything else here. Oh, pacing is awful and Kevin's performance is super awkward. Queer as Love broke my freaking heart. The production here is fantastic. The synths here are fantastic. This is an all-around great track. It's wonderfully wrote. Everything is set up for success. And then I hear this chorus, which is one of the most awkwardly presented and sung here, and it just flattens everything out for me. I feel like this is a mission statement for this entire album. It has a lot of potential. There's a lot of good going for it. And then Kevin Barnes and Of Montreal just kind of flatten it out before anything gets really exciting. Once again, I do love the big, colorful atmosphere of This Is Exposed, but it's just sort of flat. Once again, we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs and listening to Kevin Barnes rant, which, yeah, it's interesting for a little while, but I can tell you about 8 other albums where he did this a whole lot better. Not only that, but the production falls apart as soon as this track is halfway through. Yamagata Forest Flutes has potential. It's colorful for sure, but this to me just sounds like a fraction of a good idea. And to make matters even harder for me, we get a slew of really great tracks towards the finale here. Extract the Masculine Germ from Remote Memory. This is awesome. I love the icy atmosphere here, as well as the commentary that we get on Fame, no matter how batshit insane it gets. Where was this for the entire album? I would love to hear this and other ideas in this vein at a shorter track length. It's super focused, but it's so simple. I hear this, and then I think about all the other burned out tracks on here, and it's baffling to me. Then we get Thram, Rammaged, Amanmad, and honestly, this is even more shocking to me. This is a groove-heavy, carefree, sunny jam that on paper sounds like it shouldn't work, but it's one of the most legitimately fun tracks here. And those huge synths that pop in towards the end, where was that this entire album? And Kcrraanggaanngg, honestly, I didn't expect to like either. But between the laid-back groove and this performance from Kevin Barnes, which is one of his most legitimately cool here, this ends up working for me really nicely. I mean, it's a weird one for sure, but so is a lot of this album. Ugh, but just when I thought this album was going to end off on a high note, we get 2 finale tracks that are just so, I don't know, very average to piss poor. Karl Heinz Chop Up Children, honestly, to me, just takes all the good energy out of what's been going on. Kevin, once again, sounds directionless here. And instrumentally, while there are some interesting passages here, a lot of them burn out super quick and just sound directionless. And why? Why by the end of this track does this sound like they sampled, I don't know, the Super Nintendo Super Mario Kart soundtrack? And So Chill Then, as a finale, is by far the worst track here. Remember earlier when I was talking about just how half-baked some of these ideas are, and hearing Kevin go on at length sometimes is really rough? Well, this is the longest track here. This is also the most directionless and really burned out here. This one takes the cake, and not a good one either. This just brings me down and leaves me with a really sour taste in my mouth. So while I would love to come to you and say that the new Of Montreal album is worth a listen, I mean, it kind of is, but not that much. I mean, the portion of this album that is good, and there is a good chunk of tracks here that are probably Kevin's best wrote tracks in maybe 8 years. But for every good track, and there are a bunch, there's one that is just as awkward and burned out and completely uninteresting, and I don't know what to say anymore about Of Montreal in 2021. This is like the story of their life. This could have been a very good album from them that showed them getting back into pushing the envelope and doing some genuinely left-of-the-dial stuff. However, this is a double album, and I can assure you that it didn't need to be. let's leave it at that. I'm feeling a strong 6 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.